Alright, what up, YouTube fam? My bad. Batteries went out on the camera, so gotta hate that. Anyway, back to the accomplishment of the Egyptians. The Egyptians, everybody in the world came to study with the Egyptians. Okay, there's a bunch of evidence that the Egyptians, that there was cross-Atlantic communication. They've got Egyptian temples that have Mayan glyphs inside of them. And you can see the work of Stephen Mehler, M-E-H-L-E-R, and he talks about that. He shows pictures of Egyptian people that are living in Egypt now, showing him pictures of Mayan glyphs in certain Egyptian temples. So everybody in the world came to study from the people, the Egyptians, the Indian yogis, yogic systems of yoga and self-cultivation, the systems of qigong, and some of the Far Eastern self-cultivation systems, the Taoist systems of China, the qigong system of China, and the Polynesian peoples have their indigenous wisdom teachers known as the kahunas, and etc. All these people, all this information and knowledge was disseminated from the central point of knowledge, which was Egypt. So why am I saying this? Is because what was taught as an education back then is far different from what we're being taught as, quote, education now. And this education that these people were teaching, for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, was designed to empower an individual and to bring about a union between that individual and the cosmos. Okay, this was real stuff. This is not some hocus pocus, pseudo-scientific New Age BS. This stuff is real, and the physics that go along with this type of ideology and philosophy are real too, and that the Egyptians were able to erect monuments, temples, and statues that consisted of blocks of stone that weighed up to 50 to 100 tons without using cranes and ramps, dirt ramps. Okay, the Egyptian temples don't have any, there hasn't been any scorched burn marks from torches that you would use to light, let's say, a castle in England, right? They would have the torch marks on the wall where you see where the fire went up. The Egyptians didn't light their temples that way. Okay, so how did they light their temples? So, and anyway, this sacred science, which I'm gonna do a whole series on, was taught by these guys. They taught, and people from all over the world came to study with the Egyptian priests, including Moses. Okay, Moses was the leader of the Israelites, and he led the Israelites out of Egypt after 400 years. But Moses was one of the most educated men on the planet, and here's why. Okay. The book of the book of Acts in the Bible, chapter 7, verse 22 says that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was mighty in both words and deeds. And anybody that knows the story of Moses knows that he was an Egyptian prince and was educated in Egypt for 40 years before he was forced to leave. So education back then was far different than education now. And even in the recent last couple of hundred years in the European education, you had to learn Latin, Greek, you had to learn philosophy, you had to learn all the different branches of mathematics, you had to learn what wasn't called science, it was called natural philosophy. You had to learn all of the newest theories and mechanics and what they call mechanics, which is really physics now, electricity. You had to know all kind of stuff. So that's the disparity, the difference between education back then and education now. A couple of other things I wanted to talk about are some of the current, just outright foolishness that they teach in school. For example, they still teach Christopher Columbus discovered America. Okay, this is the dumbest thing on the planet, and it's been refuted time and time again that the Chinese, many different cultures in Africa, the Vikings, all had access to what they call the New Land before Christopher Columbus came along. There have been books written about this stuff. It's scholarly, well-documented, well-referenced books talking about, all these different peoples that came to the Americas before Christopher Columbus did. So why do they keep saying dumb stuff like Christopher Columbus? I'm using this example to show you just how stupid this system is. Okay, if the Native Americans got up and got in a boat and went over to England and said, hey, everybody, we discovered England, right? White folks wouldn't go for that. They wouldn't go for that at all. Okay, so we still have, I'm just pointing this out as an example of how how they indoctrinate us to believe certain things from this Eurocentric point of view that, civilization started with the white man in, the last 2,000 years, 3,000 years from Greece up to Rome, up to the present European situation we have today, and it's just not true. As a matter of fact, many of the Greek authors, the Greek philosophers that were supposedly the creators of the Western civilization actually studied in Egypt. Pythagoras, Archimedes, Thales, Socrates, Plato. Those guys likely studied in Egypt or studied some form of the sacred science from the Egyptian philosophy. This isn't taught either. For example, the Pythagorean theorem was taught to me in geometry class like he discovered it. The Chinese were using the Pythagorean theorem, but 2,000 years before he came along with it, and that theorem or that mathematical concept was used in the construction of the Great Pyramid. Which has been redated along with the Sphinx to be at least 10,500 years old. So some things that they should be teaching in the educational system is, like I said before, how to access more of our brain power. They don't teach us anything about health. Instead, they do things to make us even more unhealthy by feeding these kids poison, by feeding these kids all kind of poison, sugar, all kind of fattening foods. They don't teach about how to keep the body alkaline. They don't teach about the energy systems of the body, the chakras, the aura field, the meridians. These are all scientifically validated etheric systems of the body because our bodies are energy. All this stuff is proven in the laboratory. They don't teach any of this stuff because it would empower us to become better human beings all around, and we would no longer have to succumb to the status quo. So, y'all see me in the next video.